Hello, Caroline from Spirit of Nature Art, and boy have I been busy over the last few months. I have had lots of commissions, altered books, journals that I have been making, which has been fantastic, but I'm afraid that means the stock in my shop has been perilously low, so I do apologise. If there's anything you would really like, then do get in touch with me, because of course the other thing that's really exciting that I've been focusing on is my first altered book workshop that is going to be taking place at Whimsy in the Rockies in Colorado in June, which is so exciting. Now this tutorial has come about by some art memories. Now, not this one, this was from when I was 4 years old, but actually it's this memory here, which was my very first journal that I made only a year ago, which kind of surprised me. So I thought it would be quite fun to go and use the exact same materials, so Stamperia Forest, and make another journal and see what it came out like. So I have not gone back and looked at that first journal at all. I thought I would just use the same materials here, so Stamperia Forest, a file folder, some craft stock. I've got some envelopes there, not sure if I'll use them again. And I'm just going to follow my instinct and see how different this comes out to the very first one that I made. So I love it. I still think this is my favourite Stamperia paper ever. So I'm just kind of reacquainting myself with it right now, just to get a little bit of inspiration and just to kind of follow where my mind and my heart goes. So I've decided that Mr. Fox is going to be on the front. So that is going to dictate the size that I make the whole journal. So I'm not going to give you guys any measurements at all, because I generally don't do much measurement apart from here. I'm just kind of roughly seeing what size this needs to be in order for Mr. Fox to sit on the front. So the first thing I'm going to do is just take off that funny little knobbly bit on the bottom of the file folder. I'll put the link to these file folders below. They're just off Amazon. They're the reinforced ones. Really cheap for a pack of, I don't know, 20 I think. So I'm just kind of getting a rough idea of the size here. So the height that I want to be able to get that kind of image from that sheet where I want it to be. So I'm just kind of chopping it around a little bit. So whatever kind of image you choose to be your main kind of front page, just kind of look at how you want that to sit on the page, and that almost dictates the size. So what I like about these file folders is they already got the scored kind of marks there so that you can create the spines. So I have just, I think I've folded it on the kind of mark of 3, but there's various different kind of score marks there, so you can make the spine whatever size you like. So I am just reinforcing that fold there. So now I can measure the size that I want the front cover to be, so that Mr. Fox completely fits nicely balanced on there. And I'm just scoring here, I'm not cutting. So along that line I am scoring and then moving it along one mark on my scoreboard and scoring it again so that I can create a small spine. As you can see, you'll see it better when I distress ink it, but you can see there, so I've got 2 small spines and the big spine in the middle. So I'm now just kind of thinking about how I might use that bit I cut off, because I'm always kind of want to use as much as I possibly can of all the offcuts and spares. So I'm just sort of fiddling around with this piece here and thinking about what I might do with it. So I'm just kind of thinking maybe it might be a kind of a bit of a belly band, or a little bit of something that kind of flaps up. So I'm just kind of chopping. As you can see, this is how I work. I just kind of line things up and kind of chop them about and see what happens. So again, I've scored 2 lines along the top there, just 1 mark apart, so I can create a small spine along the top. Just whenever I'm not quite sure what I'm doing, I'll just keep flicking through the paper pack and see if I get some inspiration. And these ones here stood out because they were kind of really obvious kind of cards that could be used for journaling. So I thought I would start off with these, and I started thinking about them being, rather than a top to bottom waterfall, that I could cut them out and they could kind of flap side to side. So I'm just cutting these out. And in my head, whilst I'm doing this, I'm kind of starting to have some ideas about that kind of strange up and down flappy bit that I had before. That sometimes I get an idea, I start on it, and I'm not quite sure I'm going with it, and then I put it to the side whilst I do something else, like this. Classic example here of I didn't need to ink things at this point, but stopping and inking it gave me an opportunity to think. So you can see now the size of the main central spine and also those side spines that I've created. And I'm still thinking about this central piece here and thinking that this could be a kind of almost closure for those cards that I've just cut out. So again, I'm just making this up as I go along. I'm thinking, hold on, I could have a piece that flaps down and a piece that flaps up, and they join together and form a closure to make sure that those cards I've just cut out don't flap around. So excuse my hair getting in the way, but I'm doing a very similar thing here. I am doing 2 score marks, just one piece apart on the scoreboard to create a little mini spine, creating 2 pieces exactly the same here, and then just cutting off a little bit there to be able to create a flap. So this will make sense in a minute when I stop fiddling around. So the idea being that these will join in the middle like this. You can see I'm thinking when my fingers tap. And I'm thinking, okay, what can I put on these now? So you can see the little spine at the top. That means there will be space for those cards to sit underneath. And I've decided I'm going to use that front page because often the front page doesn't get used. And so what I realise now is that these flaps are too wide. So I am going to cut the flaps to match the size of the bits of art on the front page, so that I can maximise every inch of that paper pack. So cutting that to size and also cutting a little bit for that spine, not just because it looks nice, but also it reinforces it, makes it a little bit stronger as well. And at this point, I think I have got an idea of how this is going to start to go together. But sometimes I kind of get an idea and I get this far with it and it doesn't quite work out. So I put it to the side and something else happens instead. But it's all of that, the doing and the moving of your hands and the creating that gets the ideas going in my head, which is often why I work on 5 or 6 different projects at a time. So if I get stuck on one, I can just move on to another one. So just sticking that down and starting to see how this is going to look. So I'm just cutting off those little corners there so that I can stick that to the back piece there and just do exactly the same with the other one. I've just found another piece on that front page. And you can see here that my thought process isn't really fully complete because I'm putting some marks there to put some eyelets in, and then I've realised that I haven't actually lined the back of the little flappy things. So I've just pulled out some tea dye paper from my drawer and I'm just going to mark that up to size, just putting it in place and then using my steel rule to tear that to the right size. The reason I don't really measure is because I always get it wrong. So I much prefer just to line things up and mark them and then either cut or use the ruler. So you can see my process here, putting it in place, put a little pencil mark, and then off we go. Sometimes when I'm using the tearing with a ruler, you get a little bit of a fluffy edge. I don't mind that, but sometimes it's a bit too fluffy. So just trimming that with the scissors rounding the corners so it matches the rest of the flap, and then just giving it a little bit of distress ink. I'm using Vintage Photo through this whole project because I think that was the ink that I used last time as well, so just wanted to keep it as using the same kind of materials as close as possible that I can remember. So just sticking this down, and then once that is stuck down, I can get back to the idea that I had for the closure, which is putting in some eyelets. Just using my crocodile here. So I've put 2 eyelets in, so I've just marked, I've kind of divided the width into 3, and I've put 2 holes there that I'm going to fill with these eyelets, and that will become the closure. So it will all become clear when I put this together. Here we go, look, now you can see how it's going to go. So those 2 flaps will go there, and I'm just marking the middle spot here so that I can get them in the right place at the top and the bottom so that they match. And I'm just using some double-sided tape, just giving that a little burnish. I like to use double-sided tape for these kind of things just because it adds a bit of extra strength, I think. But then I also put a little bit of my usual tacky glue on the top, as you'll see in a sec, because if I just use that sticky tape, once I put it down, there's no room for maneuver, it's stuck. Whereas if I put a little bit of tacky glue on, it means there's some wiggle room before it kind of goes into position. So if it's not quite lined up, I can wiggle it before it sets. So I'm just lining it up with that central mark that I put on there. Sticking that down, just wiping up any excess glue so it doesn't stick to itself. And then the same with the other one. This is usually how I work. I kind of don't really have a plan. I have an idea and I just kind of work with it and see how it follows through. And sometimes that means that I kind of get a little way through and have to go back and do something like I did with the tea-dyed paper there. But those are going to hold these cards in place. So these were the cards that I cut out from that other sheet, and I was going to just use them as they were, but they're quite thin. So I decided I want to back them and turn them into a pocket. So you'll see on this one I have scored it because I thought I was just going to attach it straight like that. But what I'm going to do now is create a card backing for it. So as you can see there, I'm just literally putting it in position and making the marks so that I can get this piece of card. And this is another piece of leftover of the folio. So just using my score tool there to get that score mark in place, lining it up and then cutting it. So yes, so the pink tool on there is the cutter and the black one is the scorer. So just so you don't think I'm cutting things when I should be scoring them. I'm going to round the corners but only a little bit on these just so it kind of matches the way the cards are. So I'm going to cut off this excess bit here where I scored it before, thinking I was just going to stick that directly to the folder. And that's where it's going to go. At this point I decide I want to make it into a pocket, so I add a little thumb notch and add a little bit of the distress ink to the card beneath it. All I've done is glued around the 3 other edges so that creates a pocket. So where that little thumb notch is, you'll be able to put a little card in and out. So I've done the same on all 4 of those cards. I've mounted them in exactly the same way, but I've done them alternating so that 2 will come from one side and 2 will come from the other. And I hadn't realised this. I don't think I had these at the time, but I have realised that I did have the stamp set that goes with the Forest collection. And it's a beautiful stamp set. I love all the kind of sacred geometry stuff. So I am using some bundled sage and also some tea dye to do the stamping, because they're quite subtle colours that do sort of fade away a little bit once you've stamped them. I do find, much as I love the pattern of these stamps, but I do find that they're quite, they're really sort of stiff. So there's no kind of giving them. So you really do have to ink them up. I've also decided I wanted to put a little bit of something on the inside of the tabs here, because when the tabs open, they're going to be really visible. There's a great little extra journaling spot, but I wanted to add a little bit of detail. So I had this Lavinia stamp, this beautiful kind of foliage coming down, which I thought sort of fitted quite well. Oh, sorry about my head again. It fitted quite well with the rest of the project. I do love this stamp, it's beautiful. So that's the flaps ready. Now it's time to bring in the journaling cards. So we're going to have 2 coming in from the left and 2 coming in from the right, so I can alternate them. Actually, this is a little bit like how we did the dragonfly pockets on Enchanted Garden. And I'm just attaching these in exactly the same way. So they've got double-sided tape on, then I'm popping a little bit of tacky glue on to give me a bit of wiggle time. And I'm going to line 2 of them up very close to the edge, the top and bottom edge of the page. And then the other 2 will be a little bit more central so that they kind of alternate. You'll see in a minute how that works. I've also alternated the design, so I've got one that's quite sketchy and one that's kind of more kind of colourful on one side, and then the same on the other side. So again, it's just got that sort of alternating feel to it. Just getting those 2 stuck in place, and now doing the same on the other side. So these ones I'm just going to have kind of more in towards the centre of the page, so that they go like that. And what's nice is it doesn't matter which way round you flippy flap them. So also just being careful always when I kind of glue something here that I'm making sure that it's not interfering with the spine. So just making sure it's just a little bit in from that spine there, otherwise the spine won't close. So here we go, this is the idea. We've got our flippy, flappy journal cards, pockets, and then this is the closure. So now I want to think about the page behind, because right now that's just looking a little bit of a mess. So I want to cover up all of those little kind of like flaps that are attaching everything. And I really like the eagle here. So I'm just going to kind of mark this up and cut this to size. And because I want to have a bit of a background, but I also want a pocket in here as well. Nothing too bulky, because I've already got a fair bit of bulk there already, but because we've got those little spines there, there is enough space to have a little bit more kind of volume in terms of places to put things like pockets and cards. So I'm going to use this section here to line the back here. It's a little bit too wide at the moment, so always just double checking that you're not interfering with things folding in and out. So I'll take a little slither off there, and I want to use this flying eagle here as the pocket at the bottom. So I've cut those all to size. Now, rather than kind of lining that whole page, I've cut that bottom bit off, and we'll use that somewhere else because we're going to have a pocket there. So it'd be a little bit wasted to line the whole page and then cover the whole bottom up. So I have just distress inked around there like I have everything else, and just sticking that in place, making sure everything closes properly with that there. and then going to create this pocket down the bottom here. So I've cut that to size, and I'm just going to put a little notch in the middle there so it becomes more obvious that that is a pocket. And then just distress inking all the way around the edge, so it just kind of, again, really kind of shows that distinction between the lining paper at the top and the pocket. So I'm just going round and just gluing the 3 sides, same as I did on the flappy pockets that are just there, just gluing the 3 sides and then putting that in position to create that pocket. Just wiping up any little excess glue so that nothing ends up sticking to each other. So there we go, we've got a pocket there. And we have got a pocket on each of those journal cards. So plenty of little places to put more cards and more journaling. So there we go. The first page is complete, so I shall look forward to seeing you next time where we continue on this wonderful Stamperia project, so I will see you soon.